Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this cherry blossom vines beaded Kumihimo necklace, and this is the one that I've done here. So what you can see is we have this pattern with the cherry blossoms growing on those vines going all the way along the braid, and I've just made it long enough in this case here to then become a necklace. So that's what it looks like, and I just finished off the ends using these Kumihimo ends and attached my findings there. And then as for the length of this necklace, what we have is a braid that's 66 centimeters long, or about 26 inches. So that's the full length of the braid there. So obviously you can make it that length, but you could also make it shorter. So if you want a shorter necklace, you can just cut the pattern short after one of the flowers further down whenever you reach the length that you want. So that's completely up to you. But if you want to learn how to make this necklace, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to be needing. I have my round Kumihimo disc here because it is a round braid structure that we're making. And then the cord that I'll be using is this 0.4mm s-lon. I'm using a white colour just because it's going to be a nice background colour for my beads as well. So the beads that I'm using are all 8 Omiyuki seed beads here, but I'm just using the different colours to help them determine the pattern. So the first colour is this white pearl s-lon. This is going to be the background colour. Then I have Silverline Duracoat Paris Pink. This is the flower colour. And then Silverline Pale Yellow Alabaster. This is kind of the center of the flower color. And then I have Silverline Bronze Alabaster. And these are going to be for the vines. And I'm then going to use these Kumihimo ends here to finish off the ends of the braid. And to them I'm going to attach my findings using jump rings. So I'm using a Lotto Claw clasp but extended chain. But you can obviously use whatever you want to. So let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. We then need some lengths of our s-lon here, and what I have is 6 lengths of about 2.5 meters each, and we want to put all the ends together, fold them over in half so we can find where the midpoint is there, and I just tied a knot and then put a piece of scrap wire around it, and that's going to help pull it down through the disc. So then you want to distribute your cords like this on the disc here, so put that midpoint with the wire down through the hole in the center of the disc. Let's come out towards the back. And then I distribute the cords around the disc like this, so I'm not really using the numbers, I'm just kind of referencing the dots there just to get them even. So I just put a cord on either side of the top and the bottom dot, and then I distribute the rest just in pairs opposite each other but evenly around the disc. So what I've really ended up with is from the top there, I have 3 slots that are free in between to the next pair, and then I have 4 slots here right on the side and then 3 again, and it's the same on the other side. But then to start the braid, we need to start working with the cords here before we add in any beads. So I'm going to start with my top left one and bring that down, stay on the left side, and this is basically like an 8-strand braid that we're making, a round one. Same principle, but obviously we're using more cords. Then I'm going to take the bottom right one, bring that up and stay on the right side, then turn my disc for the next pair, and that's just the next one that you run into, and you got to make sure to turn it this direction as well and continue to do that because we have more cords in here, so that does make a difference. We'll then bring the top left cord down and then the bottom right one up, and then again turn to the next pair, so always the very next one that you run into on the top there, and then just repeat. And you can also see that the cords are starting to move around the disc, so they're going to pretty much be traveling around the disc in this direction here as we're making the braid, and keep going like this, always going to the next pair until you have about 1 centimeter of braid. So now I have that first little section of the braid ready, and then we can start adding in the beads to all these lengths of cord. So I now added my beads here to all of these lengths of cord, and as you can see it looks a little bit messy with all the different colors going on the different lengths, but once we add them into the braid they are actually going to form the pattern that we want. And now because there's so much going on with the beads here, I'm not actually going to go through the setup in this video because that would take forever. So what I've done instead is I've taken a picture of the setup and then I've added that to my website, and I'm going to put a link to that down in the description box below. And along with that picture I've also done a text description. So this should make it much easier for you to actually be able to set them up like this. So because it's a necklace that we're making, we're obviously using these long lengths of cord and also quite a few beads. So to kind of help make it easier to work with, for this I do like to use these bobbins. And how you attach them is you have one for each length of cord. You open it like that. Then I'm going to take one length here and just go to the end. And then I just want to get my beads down a bit as well. So just down towards the end there, and then you need to kind of attach this by holding it the end of the cord there, and I like to leave just a bit sticking out. It makes it a bit more secure, I find. And then when you start wrapping this around that middle, and then also I'm going to start adding in some beads inside of the bobbin, just because we don't need all the beads hanging free right from the beginning. So just wrap again, and then I wrap a bit of the cord by itself, and then wrap some more beads in, and then obviously use up more and more of the cord. And then I just want to make sure that I do leave some beads on the cord there, because obviously we do need to start adding them in. So something like that, and then when you're close down here, so you haven't got that much length to work with, which makes it much easier, I then close it back up, and then now you have your bobbin attached. And obviously you want to do that with all of the lengths here, because then it's much more manageable with the shorter lengths, but also we're just having a few beads out at a time. And then what we can do is, once we use up those beads or the cord, then we just open it back up, release some more cord and some more beads, and then close it back up again. So it's really nice and easy to work with them along the way. So do that to all of them if you have them, that is. You can also just let them hang free, but it will get a little bit tangly. Just be mindful of that. But then otherwise, attach them, and then we need to start actually adding them into the braid. So the principle of adding in the beads to this braid here is the same basic principle as an 8-strand braid where we add beads. So what that means is the next one due to take care is this top left one, because that's the next pair. I release the cord, and then as I'm releasing that cord, I'm also releasing that very first bead, letting that drop down into the middle. And then as I'm crossing the cord over, we need to make sure that that bead goes underneath the cord that's going out to the side there. So if it doesn't go by itself, just make sure to tuck it in with your fingers, and then bring the cord down into the slot on the bottom. So it's the exact same braid structure that we were using with just the cord. And then I take the bottom right one, and as I'm releasing the cord again, I'm also releasing and dropping down the first bead, and make sure it goes underneath that cord going out to the side, and then I bring it up into the slot and turn the disc to the next pair there, and then repeat the same thing. Release the cord, let the first bead drop down, make sure it goes underneath, place the cord in the slot, and then we take the bottom right one here and then repeat again. And the most important thing is just always to make sure that those beads go underneath the cords in the middle and they stay under there, because that's what's going to make them stay on the outside of the braid and form the pattern that we want. So just keep going like this all the way around. Now I'm going to just show you a bit further onto the braid there, because it's a 12-strand braid, it's a little bit different than the 8-strand. Like I said, the principle is the same, but we just want to make sure we do an extra little step a bit further on. I'm just going to get a little bit more done so we can see it properly. So now that I have a few beads added in here, then I'm just going to show you how we add them in properly so we get the effect that we want. So I'm just going to take the next cord and release that, and along doing that, dropping down that bead. So what I'm talking about is that if you just add in the bead there, drop it down, and then bring the cord down, it's not actually going to sit that nicely. We're going to get a braid that's very uneven, and some beads are kind of popping out instead of all being nice and even in the braid. So what we actually need to do is just lift this away. You'll be able to see that this cord that we're bringing over is not coming from above the beads at the end of the braid here. They're actually coming from just below them. So what we need to do is make sure we pull this cord in between those two beads there. So I like to do that by dropping down the bead, making sure it goes underneath the cord out to the side, and then the cord that I'm holding in my hand here that I'm moving, while I'm making sure that bead stays down there, I just pull at it gently, and then you'll be able to see, especially on your own at least, that that cord gets pulled in between underneath this bead that we've just added in. So basically it gets hidden within the braid, and then obviously place it in the slot on the bottom so we can move on to the next one. So it's the same principle here on the bottom. Drop down the bead as we're releasing the cord, and then you can see that cord there is coming out from below, and we want that to sit above basically, so it's going to fit with this bead. So it needs to be pulled in between those beads that's already been added to the braid. So I like to do that by just pulling at it gently. Now you don't need to pull hard on this. It's literally just to get the cord pulled in between those beads just below the bead that we want to add in that's already in the braid. So just what you want to make sure to do is keep an eye on that. So what you can often feel, I find anyways, when you're moving this cord and pulling it a bit to add in that bead, you can kind of feel it in the cord that it almost sometimes clicks a little bit when it gets pulled into the braid. And that's what you want to feel for, but also you can keep an eye that you can't see that cord in between those beads there on the outside of the braid, because that's what's going to end up making some loose beads or some beads popping out, or obviously just some of the cord showing. So that's just what you want to make sure to do throughout, how to add in the beads properly in this 12 strand braid so we don't have any unevenness in it. But otherwise, then keep adding in the rest of your beads in this exact way. So now that I used up all the beads on the cords, then what we need to do is also make a short section of braid on this end here, just like we did in the beginning, just using the cord. So what I'm going to do is just continue here without adding beads in, still making sure they just get pulled in between those beads at the end. And we want to do this for about the same length as we have right in the beginning. So once I have a short end there of the braid, then we need to just secure it in place. We can take it off the disc without the braid coming undone. So the last pair that I used was this one, so I'm going to go to the pair that I was due to use next, and then I'm going to take cords from that pair that's directly opposite each other, so these two here, and then bring them across the middle to tie a knot, and then tighten that right down on the end of the braid and leave them out to the side, and then take the other two from that same pair and also tie a knot, and then that knot there gets tied in the end of the braid but lies right next to the other one. Then I'm going to go to the next one, the next pair here on the disc, so just turn it, and then again take the cords that are directly opposite each other, tie your knot, and then take the other ones as well and tie that knot, and then tighten that so it lies right next to the other one. Because doing it this way, going to that last pair and doing it with them as well, means that we're tying off the end securely, but also it doesn't add too much bulk. So taking the last ones, and because this is the last kind of pairs that I'm using to tie knots, with each of them I'm just going to tie a double knot, because otherwise it'll come undone pretty easily, and that's going to then help hold the other ones in place as well. The last one, tie a knot next to the one we just did, and then a second one, so it's a double knot, just like that. And then the end is secure, so we can take the disc away, and then you can see here it's not going to come undone or anything. So we can now finish this off. And then the braid looks a little something like this. So you can see we have this nice pattern of the cherry blossoms growing on those vines all the way along. And obviously we have the long braid for the necklace. Then what we need to do now is finish off these ends. So first of all, we need to get rid of all these excess cords. So I'm just going to put some glue around them and then cut them off. And on the other end, I'm just going to remove that piece of wire there. And then what I'm going to do once they're ready is attach my Kumihimo ends, these bell-shaped ones. So just add some glue and then put them on the ends there. And then we can attach our findings to them. So I already have the tutorial where I show how to do that if you need to have a look at that. But then just finish off the ends like that, attach your findings, and then you'll have your finished necklace. So once I finished off both the ends here and attach my clasp, then this is my finished necklace. And then we have this cute pattern with those cherry blossoms growing on the vines. And obviously I just chose to make them cherry blossoms just because of the colours that I chose. But you can make them other flowers, so you can make them different colours, but you could even make the different flowers within the braid different colours as well. So it doesn't just all have to be the same colour flowers. So that's what it looks like. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial here, and thank you very much for watching.